Hi, I'm Troy, and I'm your money coach. I'm with PhD Retirement Consulting. I'm going to share with you today the secrets of how to build wealth. We want to make sure that your money is working for you so that you can actually get ahead. All right. Our agenda today is not real complicated. We're going to talk about financial freedom and financial security. Now, I know everybody wants to jump right to the secrets of building wealth. That's your financial security, but you can't start building financial security until you actually have financial freedom. So remember, the very first step is an emergency fund, then eliminate debt, and then create some margin so that you're not living paycheck to paycheck. That's what I call financial freedom. Once you have financial freedom, then you can start looking at building financial security. What is financial security? You achieve financial security by investing in yourself and your loved ones and in your future. Investing in the company retirement plan, investing in yours or your kids' college, investing in your home. I mean, if you're paying rent, you're not building any equity. You got to be able to invest in your home, invest in your future with your college education, and invest in your company retirement plan. Our goal is to help you grow your money, to build financial security. I will tell you, it's not as complicated as you might think. The secret to building wealth is right there in front of you. It's actually the company retirement plan. It is the most powerful employee benefit that you'll have at any company you ever work for. There is no employer benefit that's as powerful as the company retirement plan because it helps you and your loved ones get ahead. It can change the course of your life. Warren Buffett was asked one time, "What's the biggest mistake people make with money?" And his response actually was, people not learning the habit of saving early enough. And then once they do start saving, trying to get rich quick. I mean, it's not complicated to get well to do slowly, but it's not easy to get rich quick. If I were to write a book on how to get well to do slowly, that is not a book flying off the bookshelves, but it's not that complicated. It's not like trying to nail jello to a tree. It's it's really fairly easy and you have a path for doing so, and it is your company retirement plan, but it does involve what he calls the importance of the habit of learning to save early. That's really, really, really important. I'm going to share an illustration with you. This actually comes from some research or a study that was done by JP Morgan Chase. So the numbers are real. We're just using some hypothetical names to kind of explain the illustration. But let's say, for instance, there was someone at your company named Paul, and Paul's investing $5,000 a year over the first 10 years that he's working there at the company. So that's $50,000, $5,000 a year for 10 years, $50,000. And then he stops putting money in after those 10 years. Now, for this illustration, they're using a 7% rate of return, which, by the way, is not really crazy. The historical rate of return of the market is above or is almost 12%. So his 7% rate of return on $50,000 grows to be worth $562,000 after 3 more decades. If he never puts another dime in there, his $50,000 results in $562,000. So we're going to call that the Paul plan. It's a pretty awesome roadmap for success. So someone else starts working at your company. They heard all about the Paul plan and they realized it didn't even involve Paul putting in 5,000 because the illustration only shows putting $5,000 a year into the plan, but it could be from your money as well as the company match. So you don't even have to do the entire 5,000 yourself. So between you and your employer portion, if those together add up to $5,000, then you could be in the Paul plan. So we had someone else that started working at your company and they're like, I can do the Paul plan. In fact, I can probably do better than the Paul plan. Her name is Lisa, and Lisa started saving at the company when she was 35, and she put away 3 times as much as Paul because Paul stopped saving after only 10 years. So Lisa actually saved between the ages of 35 and 65. So for 3 decades, she actually put away $150,000. Now, you might suppose after 3 decades that she has maybe 3 times as much as Paul, or at least more than Paul, right? But at the exact 7% rate of return, her $150,000 investment is valued at only $505,000. Now, how is that even possible? The obvious answer to the question is, well, Paul started earlier, but does 10 years make that much of a difference? It really does. For some of you who are thinking, I'm not really thinking so seriously about retirement right now. I want to wait and kind of take this more seriously later. That could be a really, really expensive decision to delay it. Because if you wait, you could do two, three, four times as much and still not get caught up with where you would have been if you had simply started early. Starting early is really, really, really important. They had the exact same 7% rate of return, but Lisa outperformed Paul. Now, another person comes along and they're like, oh, I see the secret here is you start early like Paul, but you save all the way until the finish line like Lisa. We're going to call this person Sarah. Sarah saved 5,000 a year, and it could be between her portion and the employer portion, but between both sources, 5,000 a year for 4 decades. For 40 years, that's a $200,000 investment. But her $200,000 investment at a 7% rate of return is valued when she reaches age 65 at over $1 million. That's kind of crazy, but that's how the 401k works. That's why this is your most powerful employee benefit. There's nothing that even comes close. You get to own something that's of much greater value, but pay much less for it. Like imagine if you were to buy a home that's $1 million home. Would you pay more or less than $1 million? You'd pay more, right? Because you pay in interest. We talked about interest before. Interest that you pay is a penalty. Interest that you receive, and in this case, you're receiving the compounding interest, the compounding returns over time. You get to own something of much greater value, but pay much less for it. So over time, it grows to be of much, much greater value. Think of it this way. Let's say you want to go out and buy a brand new TV, and it's only $1,000. But as we said before, 64% of Americans can't handle an emergency of even $1,000. Not that a TV is an emergency, but the salesman says, "Hey, don't worry about it. You don't even need to have the $1,000 today. You can take 40 years to pay off this $1,000 TV." Your first question should be, "How much is that going to cost?" Right? And then he says, "Oh, don't worry, it's only $5 a year." So $5 a year for 40 years. Well, that's only $200. They're not gonna give you a deal where you get to pay $200 and after 40 years, you own a $1,000 TV. That doesn't make any sense at all. But that's exactly how crazy good the 401k is, because you get to own something of much greater value, and then you get to pay installments to actually get there. So it's gonna take a long time, but time is on your side. That's how this actually works for you. That's why it's the most powerful employee benefit your company or any company will ever offer you. Let me ask you a quick question, by the way. Let's use the Paul story or the Paul illustration as a basis for this. Would you rather pay taxes on $50,000 when you're putting the money in or $562,000 later? You see, one of the other secrets to building wealth is that you get to determine when you pay the taxes. You will pay taxes, but you get to determine whether you're going to pay the taxes on the front end or on the back end. If you're paying the taxes on the back end, it's what's called a tax deferred account. So you're deferring the taxes. It's a pre tax account because you're deferring taxes until the finish line. If you pay them up front, you have the ability to do what's called an after tax Roth contribution. Roth makes a lot of sense if the difference between what you put in and what you take out is a really, really huge gap. Why is that? Because at the beginning, it's a smaller tax bill. If you're paying taxes at the beginning, you're not paying taxes on all the earnings. So if it goes in pre-tax and you're deferring taxes, you're not just deferring taxes on what you put in, but you're deferring taxes on the earnings on what you put in. All right, really important. That's one of the other secrets to building wealth. By the way, in this illustration right here, we show that this line that kind of slopes is kind of a straight line, but we all know the market doesn't really look like that, right? The market actually looks more like this. This is actually a picture of what the market looked like over the last 5 years. I will say the market was actually up 39.5% over the last 5 years. That's phenomenal growth. But it may not have felt like phenomenal growth, especially during times when the market was constricting or pulling back a little bit. In fact, it felt a little bit like a roller coaster, probably made you a little bit sick at times. Is that good or bad? I mean, we all agree that if you put the money in at point A and you take the money out at point B, as long as point B is higher than point A, that's a really good thing, right? But would you rather it be a straight line to point B, or would you rather it kind of bounce up to point B? It's a really good question. I'm going to answer that question with another question. How many payrolls do you have in a year? I mean, if you only had one payroll during a year, you'd have to be really, really lucky to time that sucker correctly to make sure it goes in at the right time. But if you have multiple payrolls during the year, a fluctuating market actually helps you to build wealth. And here's why. Sometimes when you contribute, your money or your paycheck when payroll runs, your paycheck allows you to make contributions here or here or here, or sometimes when the market drops a little bit, then you're making it here or here or here, or even better yet, that plunge that you see right around 2020, that was from the pandemic. If your payroll happened to hit during that particular week, you were buying a bunch of shares at a discount. So you see, actually having the market go up and down actually helps your money grow. Now, it may not help you sleep at night, but hopefully you can understand a little bit better about how it is helping the money grow in the account. Those who left the account alone and didn't try to time it actually did really well during this 5-year period. In fact, in investing, we call that the importance of doing nothing. I don't know how you pronounce that, but I pronounce it, I don't know. Like, if you don't know what to do with your investments, the best thing to do is nothing at all. Those who don't actually touch their account or touch their investments, don't try to time it, do much, much better as the market kind of fluctuates. Just keep in mind that the ups and downs actually helps your money to grow. I just want you to keep that in mind because I know sometimes the roller coaster can be hard to ride, right? But what's the biggest secret? What's the biggest key to actually making your money grow? Is it how much you save or where you save? Is it how much you put into the company retirement plan, or is it where you invest in the company retirement plan? Well, one of these is a lot more important than the other. Let me answer the question like this. Does it really matter which fund we pick? So let's say, for instance, you were going to have an international fund in the plan. Does it really matter whether you're going to pick the Fidelity International Fund or the MFS International Fund or the Vanguard International Fund or the Goldman Sachs International? Does it really matter which company you're picking for that international fund? Well, the result of this survey that was done, the result of this research are, yeah, it matters, but it's only 2% of the difference. It's more important, about 10 times more important, how you diversify the account, like in terms of how much you actually put in international, rather than which international fund you use, how much you actually invest in international. Although that's only 20% of the equation. So collectively, 2% is the funds, 20% is the diversification, 22% is actually the where, which leaves obviously the biggest factor being how much. How much money we save is almost 78% of your success factor. It's not even close. The best way I know how to explain this is to say, let's say you had a fancy sports car in the driveway. How fast or how far do you think that sucker is going to go if you don't ever put any gas in the tank? Not very far. So you've got to make sure that you're saving enough. That is so, so, so important. The where, the where is actually the least important part of the entire equation. The secret to building wealth is to save as much as possible, as early as possible, in Roth if possible, and then leave it alone, like the importance of doing nothing. Although that is not where wealth building starts. Okay? Wealth building starts with the emergency fund and then eliminating debt and then creating margin. Saving as much as possible, as early as possible, and Roth if possible. Those are really, really important things, but that's actually step 4 in the process. That's what I call financial freedom, and financial freedom needs to precede financial security. All right? Do you have any questions about this, about the secrets to building wealth? Here's how you can actually reach me. This is my email address. This is our toll-free phone number. Call at the office anytime. And here's a link to my calendar if you'd like to get some advice for your particular account on how to build financial security. This is a link to a free 15-minute coaching session. Reach out anytime, find a slot on my calendar and schedule some time for us to talk. Why should you do that? Well, because your situation may be unique from anybody else there at your company. So we should chat about what your situation is and help to make sure that you're on track to financial success. We want to help make sure that your money is working for you, and we want to make sure you're successful in reaching your financial goals. Financial freedom that leads to financial success. All right, I'm here to help if you have any questions.